Hey, Oscar here from Oscar's Green Card. Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to discuss Visa Bulletin because we are just hours away from knowing what the October 2025 Visa Bulletin will bring, and I want to recap on what has been happening and what could we expect based on data for the next months to come. Let's start. If you're new to this channel, you should know that we talk about green cards like EB2 or EB1A, in which you can be a self-petitioner. And this means that you can do this process without having a job offer, without a company that sponsors you. And also, you can do it by yourself without a lawyer. You can put together your petition, submit it to USCIS, and do everything without having to pay for lawyer fees. That's what we teach you here in this channel on our websites like oscarsgreencard.com, and especially in our specialized courses that are step-by-step guides for NAW or EB1A. But let's start with today's topic, and that is Visa Bulletin. We're just a few hours away. I don't know if 1 or 2 days or 4 days, because we never know when it comes out, but just very close to the October 2025 Visa Bulletin. And it is an important Visa Bulletin because it will be the first one of fiscal year 2026. Years for USCIS and State Department go from October to the following September. So right now, we already depleted all the visa numbers for EB1, EB2, and EB3 because there is a cap system that we're going to discuss in just a second. And that means that no more green cards are granted until October 1st. So that new Visa Bulletin is especially important because the quota will renew, we will have new visa numbers available, and for many applicants that would mean that they can get an interview and they can complete the process. So the first thing that I want to point out is a quick recap on the US employment-based green card limit or cap system that they use to administer these permanent residency cards. And we have 3 types of quotas. First, we have a total annual limit, and that is 140,000 employment-based green cards each year. And that's where the fiscal year becomes so important because we go from October to the following September. So during that year, the number cannot exceed 140,000 in all the categories. And there is an exception here. The number can be higher than 140 if there are unused family green cards from the previous year. Then we may have a carryover there. That was the case in the last few years, especially after COVID. We had a lot of family green cards going into employment, but that has been decreasing. And I think the number for 2025 was about 150,000 green cards in employment-based categories. Then the second cap we have is the category limit. We have EB1, EB2, EB3, EB4, and EB5. The ones we discuss in this channel more closely are EB1 because it includes EB1A, and EB2, EB2NAW. Those are self-petitions that you can do. For each of those categories, there is a certain percentage, 28.6% for EB1 and EB2. And the exception to this cap is what we call fall-up, fall-down approach, which is if there are unused EB1 visa numbers, they can go to EB2. If there are unused EB2, they can go to EB3. And unused EB4 and EB5 visas can go to EB1. There's no provision to move EB3 visas at this point. Finally, we have a per country limit, which becomes really, really important. This is a maximum of 7% of the totality of green cards, family, and employment can be given to each country every year. That's why countries like China and India suffer from long backlogs because those countries have large populations, and that means that because they are subject to the same cap than a country like Luxembourg or Spain, then it means that the Visa Bulletin dates will not move nearly as fast as for other countries. And in fact, those countries will have a specific column in the Visa Bulletin. And so all of these 3 pillars of the system are codified in the law, and only Congress can change that. So for a major thing to happen here, Congress, Senate, and the House would need to come together, and this system then could change. For example, they could theoretically increase the overall number of employment-based green cards, or they could get rid of the per country cap or increase that cap. They could do a bunch of things, but in reality, they never do anything. So I wouldn't bet really heavily on a big change in immigration. This is the system that we have to deal with right now. Usually we're very optimistic when it comes to October because, like I said, new fiscal year, new quota, we have new visa numbers, and we expect more movements in the visa bulletin. However, the reality is not exactly like that. Let's see for EB2 what happened in the recent years. Here on the left, we have what happened in fiscal year 2023 to fiscal year 2024. So the change from the visa bulletin from September 23 to October 23, we see that for table A, final action dates, the dates moved only 1 week forward. And for table B, they moved 1 month forward. So not much change there. And last year, it was very similar, fiscal year 24 to 25. We had no movement whatsoever in final action dates, table A, and a few months of movement in table B, which is dates for filing. So in these two last years, we really didn't see a big impact on the visa bulletin coming from the tables themselves. What happens though is that during the beginning of the year, USCIS usually lets adjustment of status applicants use table B instead of table A to file their adjustment of status. So usually the beginning of fiscal year is very positive for those of you who are in the US and are hoping to complete your green card process, your second step of the process, undergoing an adjustment of status, changing from, for example, a student visa into a working visa, going to a USCIS center and applying that adjustment on your visa status. And so if you see, there was no meaningful change in table A, which is generally, I say that's the most important table, but if you were hoping to start your adjustment of status, you went from a date of July 1st, 2022, in this case, to January 2023. So that's already a few months advancement. And that is also true in the following fiscal year, where you would be looking at March 2023 in September, and then because they let you use table B to start the adjustment of status, then you move from March to August 2023. Yes, there is a change, a positive change for adjustment of status applicants, but it's not a dramatic change for most people, meaning that table A in the last 2 years didn't dramatically change or it didn't dramatically move forward. Actually, most of the changes that happened in EB2 in table A came a few months later into the actual fiscal year, not so much in the first month of the fiscal year. As we're going to see in a second, I'm going to show you the data of how things moved throughout each of the last years. But before we do that, let's go to Marina because I want her to explain the resources that we offer to do-it-yourself applicants like yourself if you are interested in this process.
Let's take a quick break to tell you all about the resources that we offer in our websites. Our website, allscarsgreencard.com, is the main portal to access all of our resources in one place. From there, you can go to our specific websites about the EB1A and EB2 NIW categories. There is a lot of information about these two categories. You can read our latest posts, learn from the success stories of our course members, and stay up to date with the recent news about these green cards. But what we recommend the most is our courses. We have 4 different courses. Let's start with the 2 courses focused on the petition writing. We have one for EB1A and another one for EB2 NIW category. These are focused on teaching you how to prepare a good petition step by step. We tell you everything about the requirements of each category, how to craft recommendation letters, and we talk about the forms and the fees. In every lesson, you can write your questions down so you're not left with any doubts. Also, in the EB2 NIW course, we meet once a month, so we can answer your questions face to face and learn from each other. On top of these 2 courses, we offer an additional course about responding to a request for evidence in the EB2 NIW category, and another one to teach you the requirements of each category and how to build your profile. So after everything I've told you, what are you waiting for? Join us, we learn together.
Thank you, Marina. And now let's go back to our topic of today. We're talking about visa bulletin movements, and I just show you how the change of the fiscal year happened in the last 2 years. Now, I cannot predict what is going to happen, what is about to happen with the October 2025 Visa Bulletin, the first Visa Bulletin of fiscal year 2026. But if we take the reference of the last 2 years, which are similar years in terms of how the Visa Bulletin is moving compared to before, which was a much better situation where we used to have EB2 current. So if we go by that, we shouldn't expect big movements in October, at least not big movements forward. But again, I don't make predictions and we'll have to see what happens next. But now let's see how the Visa Bulletin moved throughout the totality of each fiscal year from fiscal year 2023, because before that, the bulletin was current for EB2. So in fiscal year 2023, we actually saw a retrogression from current at the beginning of the fiscal year to July 2022 in table A, and that is a retrogression of 15 months. So that was a bad year. That's when things started going south for EB2 in terms of Visa Bulletin. More people getting interested, more popularity of the category, and then more applications means that the Visa Bulletin will be slower. Fiscal year 2024, things did advance at that point. We moved 8 months in table A and less than 3 months in table B. And fiscal year 2025, which is about to end now, saw less movement. So instead of 8 months, we moved less than 6 months in table A and 3.5 months in table B. So things are moving slower, things are getting sluggish. And what is my expectation moving forward? Not a prediction, but based on what I just showed you, how things are slowing down, and the data for demand, the popularity of the category, the number of approvals that USCIS is receiving. So we can review that together. And what we see for EB2 is that the category has been seeing a high demand over all the last quarters. It has remained high, above 20,000 cases submitted each quarter. And the approval rate for the overall category, which is what counts for the Visa Bulletin, has remained over 80%. So popularity still high. In fact, EB2 specifically has gone up significantly. And the number of cases that USCIS has pending in their offices that they have not adjudicated, they have not approved, they have not denied yet, is also really high. It has been going up since mid-fiscal year 2023, and now we're sitting at almost 80,000 cases in EB2 yet to be adjudicated. So if we just take this number of I-140s that need to be adjudicated, and we apply a conservative 75% approval rate, which is lower than what I just showed you for the past fiscal years, and we also take into account that on average, each principal will have one derivative. That's the average. They will use 2 visa numbers for each I-140 approved. If we assume that, over 100,000 visa numbers will need to be used to clear this backlog that is currently sitting at the USCIS desks, or it was sitting at the time they reported these numbers. And to demonstrate the dimension of this backlog that USCIS is not able to process, remember that only about 40,000 visa numbers are available each year in EB2. So just to clear this backlog, they will need more than 2 years of Visa Bulletins. And that is without taking into account the cases that are submitted to USCIS month over month. Okay, this is just to clear the backlog that is right there. If my math is correct, if not, please correct me in the comments. I would love to see that. But what I try to show you here is that the situation will not dramatically change for the better. If anything, things will remain slow if demand continues to be this high, or even if the demand weakens a little bit, considering the backlog that they already have, the Visa Bulletin will not really move forward that much. So can we expect 5 months movement like this year? Can we expect 8 months? I am not sure about that. I would say movement will be more in line with what we have been seeing recently, which, to recap, was 6 months almost for fiscal year 2025. I think we're going to be in that realm or even a little bit worse than that, because the reality is what I just showed you is that the demand is high. There's a number of cases already sitting at USCIS. Unless the law is changed, nothing will dramatically improve. Okay, so yeah, it's true that I would love to give you very positive news. I'm in general an optimistic person, but the numbers speak for themselves. And right now, EB2 is a category that is not going to speed up in terms of Visa Bulletin. EB1, on the other hand, is current in the Visa Bulletin for most countries except India and China, what we have been seeing for those two countries, India and China, is that there was no movement whatsoever in fiscal year 2025, which is very sad. And I hope they can see a little bit of advancement in this year, but that's just hope. And we'll have to see what happens once the new visa bulletins start to come out. Now, all of this being said, if you are planning to start your EB2 NAW process, it's better to start as soon as possible so you are in line with a priority date as early as you can get. And remember that you get the priority date the date USCIS accepts your I-140, the day they receive your application for an I-140. So stay focused on your petition, go ahead, submit it, and there is a benefit from having an approved I-140. You can renew your H-1B unlimited times. And if you are not on H-1B, you are abroad or you are in a different type of visa, you will have to undergo this period of wait time for the visa bulletin. Premium processing will only help you during the I-140 step. You will speed up the adjudication time for that step, but you will still have to wait for the visa bulletin to allow you to file and get your adjustment of status or your consular processing finished and get your actual green card. So I hope this video was informative, and I hope I will see you very soon here talking about the visa bulletin for October 2025, the first month of fiscal year 2026.